Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar of Modeling the Landscape and BIM Technology. This is Elham and I'm going to present an overview of lens design. Then we will continue with Javier Garcia, who is going to run the main commands and features of lens design on AutoCAD. Frances, Saya, and I, during the presentation, will attend the questions. So feel free to ask any question during the presentation in chat box or in Q&A session. Frances, are you going to present yourself?
Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm Frances Saya, Product Manager of Visual Art and Lands at the SUNY. And we're here also helping with any questions during the session. So feel free to participate and ask as many things as you want.
We have Xavi Garcia today, and Xavi.
Hello, good morning, everybody.
Let's start with an overview of lens design. Lens design is a professional landscape software in two versions, one for AutoCAD and another for Rhino. Both versions are available with the same license. This software includes BIM technology. You can produce 2D drawing, model your project in 3D, and then automatically it generates the quantity takeoff list of plants and other material. And also there are several tools for animation and visualization of the project. Basically, this program is used for landscape architecture, but in addition, in green infrastructure, for civil engineering, or for architecture, for urban planning projects, and for environmental projects. It's quite useful, especially for modeling the forests. I'm going to stress its main powerful features. First of all, lens design includes an extensive plant database in 3D and 2D. The plant database includes several filters that lets you to select adequate plant according to the climate, soil type, or other features. And as you see here, each plant species has several representations. On top, you see the realistic, the detailed, the conceptual, and the elevation mode of the same plant species. Inside of the plant database, there is a plant editor that lets you to modify any plant species. So you look for a plant existing in the plant database, and then you modify different parameters of the plant, and finally you can save it as a new plant or as a modified version of the existing plant species. So in this way, in 1 or 2 minutes, you can generate a new plant which does not exist in plant database. There are different representation modes. As you see, we have conceptual, detailed, or realistic, and you can shift between different representations or from 3D to 2D easily just by one click. Another powerful feature is a powerful terrain modeling tools of the program. You can generate a terrain by points, lines, or combination of points and lines. Once you generate the terrain, you can easily modify the terrain by control points, generate different cut and fills, create a path in terrain, and the lens design will calculate the volume of earth moving operation automatically. In continue, you can divide the terrain in different parts and assign different texture to each part. Also, you can import terrain from the web. In this way, by looking the location of your project on the map, lens design will generate the 3D model of the terrain based on a global elevation database. In this example, we have an example in Barcelona, since we are based in Barcelona. So as you see, then once you select the area, the lens design will generate the terrain easily at the same moment. And in continue, you can also import the 3D mesh of the area, including the satellite image. So we repeat the process with the satellite image. So as you see, now we have a 3D mesh, including the satellite image. So it's up to you to choose each option. You prefer to have a terrain to do different kind of earth moving operation, or you need just the topography of the terrain. We have dynamic documentation tools, as you see here. You can insert plant list, list of urban furniture or earth moving operation or other kind of lists. Add the image of plants with a special command inside the program. and produce different documentation and different drawings. In Continue also, you are able to generate an irrigation plan and design the irrigation system. Landsdesign will calculate the quantity of pipes and sprinklers or emitters that are used during the irrigation design process. The difference between AutoCAD and Rhino version is that in Rhino version, we have grasshopper components. So for those that are interested in parametric design, the Rhino version is recommendable because there are some features that are just able with Grasshopper. But of course, knowing Grasshopper is not necessary for working with landsdesign. It's just a plus. Here is just an example of what you can do with Grasshopper in landsdesign. We are going to populate an area all with parametric design, and it generates a forest. So in this example, as you see, all the process is done with Grasshopper, and the height of the plants are dependent to their distance to the axis of the path. By moving the path, everything changes automatically. It's just a simple example. Of course, there are many solutions that you are able to work and to solve with the help of Grasshopper. Another feature in landsdesign is the hardscape tools that are including parametric walls and curves, parametric paths, parametric fence, and block library of urban furniture inside the program. But of course, in addition, you are able to import other blocks, other furniture from supported programs like SketchUp. There are visualization tools like Walk Mode, visual simulation, sun and shadow tools. There are different render possibilities that are compatible with landsdesign, and some image filters inside the program. This animation, as you see, is produced with landsdesign and the help of a render, in this case, an escape. Another nice feature of landsdesign is that now landsdesign can run and can be open inside Revit with inside Revit technology. So in this example, as you see here, we can open the terrain and the vegetation project inside Revit, and you can modify that in landsdesign, but you see the modification at the same moment in Revit environment as well. So it's quite useful for those who are looking for a solution of a landscape design in Revit environment. But this feature also is available in Rhino version. The design process with landsdesign is summarized in this short video. As you see, you can elevate the contours, the topographic contours, and generate the terrain. And once you generate the terrain, you can modify it and continue zonify the project in different zones. It gives you the area of each zone, and you can assign different labels to each zone or different material. You can continue with vegetation individually in a row or in a forest. Plants may have natural variation. Well, in Continue, you can add hardscape tools and different blocks to the project. In any moment of the project, you can shift between 3D and 2D easily just by one click and modify the project. Finally, you obtain the list of plants, earth moving, irrigation, etc., and you render the project for visualization. In this slide, you see the workflow of landsdesign that we recommend you includes from 2D drawing in AutoCAD or in Rhino, and you can continue modeling the landscape with landsdesign. For visualization, you apply a kind of render which is compatible, like V-Ray, Enscape, Flamingo, Twinmotion, or other kind of renders. In the case of AutoCAD, the renders that are compatible with AutoCAD. You may apply virtual reality with a headset of virtual reality, or print your project with a 3D printer. You can also export the documentation in Excel or PDF, or print your drawings directly from landsdesign. In any moment of the project, you may have collaboration with SketchUp, Revit, or 3D Max to import or export models. And another feature which is quite useful is that you can import GIS data, topographic point clouds, or digital elevation models into landsdesign, and landsdesign is able to generate a terrain, a 3D terrain based on this kind of data. These are some examples of what you can do with land design, landscape project. In this case, another project which is basically an architectural project, and land design is used as a complement to the architectural design. This kind of documentation which are produced in land design, and urban design project, in this case, a kind of renovation plan, which is done with land design. Up to now, do you have any question, or shall we continue with the live demo?
Well, there is a question, there is a comment already about land design running inside Revit. So it's only possible if you, for the Rhino version of land design, using the Rhino Inside technology. Okay, it's a technology that lets you run Rhino, and also, of course, all the plugins that work in Rhino in the Revit environment. Okay, but it's necessary to use the plugin for that, the Rhino Inside plugin, and in the version of Rhino 7. Okay, but this is not available in the land design version for AutoCAD.
Yes.
And they also ask about takeoffs, quantity takeoffs. So you can mention later on which kind of objects you can list, all right, and the data that you can quantify. And they are also asking about native plants in Louisiana, USA. So maybe you can point that out.
Sure. We are adding almost 1,000 American native plants to our plant database in the next update. So in a couple of months, you may obtain a new plant database, including more plants. At the moment, we already have some general plants, but maybe not all local plants, of course. So we are expanding our plant database in any update. So just stay tuned. So let's continue with Xavi.
Okay, thank you very much, Elan. My name is Xavi, as you know. Well, for one of you are a little bit familiar, there is a college or a university that has my name as well. And well, there is also a character played by Patrick Stewart in X-Men that has, in this case, the surname as Xavier. Then you can pronounce as you can.
You look like him almost, Xavi.
Yeah. Well, in fact, this I've saved my my head will be more closer. I also want to apologize because English is not my mother language. Let's say it's in fact my third language. I speak Spanish and Catalan as well. That it's a language here in the area I live in. And also I'm not quite familiar with the species in USA, or at least in deep in Louisiana. But one of the things that you can do is that you can download, we will mention later on probably, an evaluation version where you can see, you can use, well, there is like a limited database of plans that you can work with, but you can see the database and you can see if there are. In fact, in the database, you can create your own plants or species, and then you can create if you are not able to find those that you need to work with in your projects. Yeah, well, there is something that it's for free for the users, for the existing users. You don't have to pay an extra money for the database plans that are updated every period of time. Okay, one of the questions was about the platform. And someone introduced Revit as a platform. Frances explained it that how you can work with the Rhino platform together with landsdesign, and afterwards using the Inside Rhino option that it's let's say for free. It's not another program, but it's a link that allows you to see what is being done in Rhino and landsdesign inside Revit, let's say updated at the same time. For those of you that are familiar with AutoCAD, you can see that the interface I'm using is the existing AutoCAD interface. I have created my own workspace that I call Xavi. It's like a shortcut name of Xavier. for lands, but if I push down the different workspaces, you can find that there is a bunch of them that you can create depending on which is the work that you are going to do. I'm also having the pull-down menu where you can find the most commons, and in fact, the pull-down menu is one that exists since 1982 in the first AutoCAD version ever. What we are adding with the plugin, it's another pull-down menu called landsdesign, structured with the different options in here, where you can find how to introduce a vegetation, civil works, how to work with terrain. We are going to see different examples of these options, how to use the urban furniture from the blocks library that Elam talk about, how to show how to introduce these options, the irrigation. And one of the things that for me, from my point of view, is one of the most interesting things, because we are not only creating a drawing where we are trying to design something that we are going to show our customers or whatever we want to make the design for, we are creating the documentation. And then we are using a word that it's now we are very familiar, that it's the BIM file, the building information model. In fact, landsdesign is adding building information model to our, in this case, DWG, or if you are using Rhino 3DM, or if you are using Revit, you will have the Revit file format as well. And this is important because once we have finished our project, we're going to get documentation with the list of plants, irrigation, lines, etc. And this is going to remain in our drawing. And any change that we made, because as you know, normally we can make a design, but afterwards we have to make an as-built, creating what's the garden or the park really finish at the end. Then it's quite important that it will be easy to edit our file and create exactly the as-built that we have done. And then we can release this information together with the project and also with all the plans information from the documentation from the database, with our own comments that is going to add a value to the customer. And then we are not only designing a garden, we're providing all the necessary information to our customer to grow the garden or the park in the future. And this is important to the relationship that we are creating with this customer don't end at when we release the park or the garden to our customer. Okay, another thing that we have is in the AutoCAD base, we have the ribbon menu where we can use the options. And I have also switched on the icon menu that I place in here. On the right side of the screen, we have created a toolbar. And in this toolbar, we have all the properties that we can manage in terms of edition, in terms of changes. If we are working only with AutoCAD or we are creating, of course, our designs by hand, each time our clients are asking for a modification, it's something that it's let's say at least a little bit annoying in terms of we have to take some time to make this modification to make the customer happy. But with landsdesign, we're going to see that make any change is going to be as easy as, and it's done. And then we are making our customer happy because we are not going to be angry each time he is asking to move a plant from one place to another, to change the species, or to change the number of plants in a row. Okay, I'm going to show how to work with the program in terms of, I'm going to place into the wireframe, in terms of a full design starting with the Thonify. With Thonify, sometimes we're creating different areas inside our project. And then at the beginning, at the early beginning, we only want to know how much square meters we have from different areas. And in these areas, we can have some kind of price per square foot or any, I'm going to use the metric units in square meters. But if you think about, instead of meters, you use foot or feet or feet or any other metric that you are or measurement that you are using, you can think about it. And then we can have a price that will be applied in every square feet. For example, if we are going to use an area that's going to place grass, we can have at least some kind of information that we can provide to our customer. Well, if we create a garden this way, this is going to cost more or less, depending on at the end which plants we or also the age of the plants, of course. But at the end, we are going to provide to our customer an idea which is going to be the amount of money that he has to budget or he has to invest in the garden, and decide how many square feet they want to have of different kind of objects. Then we can find this information inside the documentation, and this is the command sonify. The sonify command allows us to select an area. As you can see, the command prompt area inside AutoCAD is quite important, as well as the dialog boxes that I'm going to show you each time it appears that there is such a kind of tricky way to use them. Then you only have to click an internal area, for example, this area here, that the command is going to identify which is the area. And then we can provide a name. We can use to level it. We can, of course, disable the level if we don't want to use it. And also, we can calculate the area. We have the options to select the text style, the height, and we are going to hatch this area with an AutoCAD hatch style. In this case, I'm going to use the option grass, and with a scale. The scale, of course, depends on how much I want to have the area draw in. Of course, this is an object that we can select, and we can go to the edition on the right side, to the landsdesign panel, and we are able to change any of the features of this option. We can select another level, we can change the pattern, or for example, we can change the color. And as you can see, the color for the hatch and the color for the text remains different, because in fact, these objects are really two objects. The text, as you can see, we can modify the position as well, are in relation, but we don't have to take the same color in both entities at the same time. I'm going to repeat this in different areas. Of course, I can repeat the option to create another grass area. In this area up here, I'm going to make it without changing the color in this case. These 4 areas, in this case, I'm going to change it, for example, to specify that I want to have different kind of grass geometry, but at the end, it's going to be grass in these areas here. And I'm going to place the text in this area here. For example, I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to say this is going to be a tree area. I'm going to keep this time the color selecting from this area color light brown. And I would like to change the hatch. I can go here and change the pattern, and I have the possibility to use any of the existing hatch patterns inside AutoCAD. For example, I'm going to take this pattern here, and I can change the scale as well to make it smaller. For example, with this kind here. We're going to finish to a couple of areas too. I'm going to say up this area. There's going to be the path area. I'm going to change the hatch to use the H-bone. I'm going to place even a light yellow, this one, for example. And finally, I'm going to use the last one. Of course, I can have as much as I need. But I can see, I can say that it's going to be the lake. And for the lake, I'm going to change the pattern. I'm going to use this pattern here. And of course, I'm going to use the blue color here. Well, at any moment, we can create the documentation for this information here. We can create our own list of the zone list. We can place this on a list anywhere in our drawing. Of course, we can use the layout afterwards to create the presentation. I need to, but the important thing is we have this information here with, in this case, as I said, the amount of square meters, but could be, sorry, the square meters, but could be the square feet. And the advantage is this information could be exported just selecting the object and using the right mouse button, where we can find what is called like a pop-up menu or the shortcut menu. And we can see here that more or less in the middle of this menu, we have information about landsdesign commands. And the landsdesign commands I'm going to use in this case is the listing command, and I can export this information. We can see here that we have a preview with this information. We can print it if we need it. We have the option to preview in a file format, or we can export. And the advantage is that we can export this information to an Express sheet file format. Then, if I'm not going to use this, for sure you have seen spreadsheet files, but as you can imagine, if I have, you can see here that I have two grass options here because he separates the color, and I can say grass 1, grass 2, and whatever. They are different. They are not exactly the same. Are grass both, but one is with different kind of grass. And if I have a price that I more or less can account a price for 3 areas, pathways, lakes, grass version 1, version 2, or type 1, type 2. I can deliver in 5 minutes, keeping in mind that I was explaining different options and making some changes. It took me a little longer. But by the way, to create an information like this one in 5 minutes, and you can provide an idea to your customer that if we prepare a garden with these options, more or less is going to cost any price. Probably afterwards it's going to be the double, but depending on how much trees you place in here or how much plants or any other, let's say, additional information. But we can say if it's going to cost $1,000 or $10,000 or bucks or whatever you currency you use. Okay, we can use this this file. In fact, one of the things that we have seen is all the information that we are using. The program is placing this information in a layer called zonificación. It's the name of my layer in this case. But you can customize the layers. As you can see here, we have the option, the landsdesign option menu, where you can choose which is the predefined or the default layer name that you want to use when you are creating different objects. In this case, I'm using the Spanish word, but could be the areas could be in any other name. And then one of the things that we can do now is we can switch off the layers and continue working with the object. In that case, I have prepared another file with a little bit different kind of information. In fact, I'm going to show you, but I'm not going to insert more blocks from the library. And I have created the other view, but in range and some other any from the library. I've created the leg with surrounding or a contour in this case, but the rest of the objects, as you can see, remains in 2D. I have inserted as well some level curves here to create a terrain. And it's the following thing I'm going to do. In this case, we can, I'm going to show you later on another way to work with the terrains when I finish this garden too. But we can imagine that these curves could be obtained from different sources. For example, if someone made some topographic study of this small hill that we are going to have here, then we can place just the contour lines in 2D. And I have created a special layer to place them to be able to switch on and off. As you can see, you can manage your drawing how the way you want. And mainly, the rest of the garden is going to remain on the ground. It's going to be flat, this area here. And we are going to work with a couple of terrain areas. This one is going to be, let's say, the existing one that we're going to manipulate, but we are going to create a couple of them more. Then one of the things that we have inside the lands design option is the terrain modeling. And as you can see here, we have a bunch of commands. The first two allows me to import graphic information system data inside my model. Or the one in this case, this could be different kind of file formats called shape. I'm going to use later on this import elevation data directly from the wall, from the earth. I'm going to use a part of one garden inside a city, but you can use this option to move around the wall and take a piece of land to be integrated just as a mesh, or the most important thing, as we will see later on, as a lands terrain, because we can work with the lands terrain, creating different kind of options. In this case, what I'm going to do is I have a flat curves. I want to change the elevation for the curves. And then we have this dialog box. And the dialog box, tricky in any place, is always you have to go from upside to downside. And then the program is going to ask me which is the level for the first curve. And then I'm going to rest the first curve in the ground level. Let's say the ground level is 0. And then which is the increment, the amount of height that we need, or we have in this case, in between each curve. Then I'm going to use one, I'm working in meters, and it's going to be 1 meter, more or less like 3 feet and a little bit more, and some inches. But you can imagine that 1 meter is about 3 feet. And then what we are going to do is we are going to draw a line that's going to cross all my lines, all my curved lines, in the down upside direction. I mean, the first one is the one that is going to remain on 0. The next one is going to be in 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's going to be like 14 feet height. Then when I apply, and we close the dialog box because we have already finished, as we can see here, all the curves have been elevated or created in 3D for me. And once I have all the curves placed in the 3D, we can start to work creating the terrain. In this case, I'm going to use this option here. That is the terrain generator. The program is going to show me again another dialog box that I have to fill from upper part to downside. The first question is about which is going to be the size for the tiles, because it's going to create a terrain as a mesh. Then it's asking me which is going to be the cell size or the tile size. Of course, as you can imagine, as much as small I placed my cell size, the amount of information is going to be higher. It's going to be more in detail with more quality, but it's going to punish the speed for my drawing. Then don't rush, don't be hurry. Start with, let's say, big size, for example, 5. That is going to be more or less like 16, 17 square feet. It's going to be the size in both directions, X and Y cell. Afterwards, we have some quality settings in this checkbox. We can work with a smooth area, or we can simplify when there is a bunch of points that are close one to the others. For example, of course, I'm going to constrain my terrain to the outside area of the magenta line. First of all, I'm going to create a terrain that is going to fit in the for the size of the outside contour line, but I want to place my terrain in the area that constrains to my terrain, but I mean to my park, or in this case to the terrain area. Then I'm going to simplify all this area here that is going to remain quite flat, let's say. And at the end, we're going to create a solid object. Then the program is asking me which is going to be the height, the amount of in-deep height that they're going to work with. Then, in case we have to make a deep hole, for example, if we are creating a garden that is going to have a swimming pool, and then we have to create a hole. In fact, we are going to make a hole in this case to show you how the holes in the terrain works. You have to add some amount of information. In this case, I'm going to place just 0.1 as the value. Then when I say OK, you can see that in the command prompt area, the program is asking me for a bunch of curves or points. If I have a cloud of points, I can select them. Then once I have selected, we can see that the program has created terrain. In fact, one of the things that we are working on is in the panel, we have the option to select which is the dimensions that we want to work with. And we can work it in 2D or in 3D. Of course, 2D is going to be very easy to use to create a top view drawing. But the advantage is if we change the point of view, we can see that we have, as well as the original curves, a bunch of curves that are showing me which is going to be the contour for my hill. But once I want to see this in 3D, I will have to change my setting to work with 3D option. And if I place my geometry in a, let's say, realistic geometry information, we can see that we have the hill here. Of course, the hill is in a rough view. If I want to have more quality, again, we have the option to change the value directly from the control panel, landsdesign panel. And you can see now that the squares have become smaller, and then the quality for the mountain is going to be more accurate following my contour curves. Well, I'm going to leave this size for a while because now I want to work with this terrain that fits to the contour line. I'm going to work with this terrain to fit in a contour. Then one of the things that I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to select my object and select the right mouse button to make the pop-up menu or the shortcut menu appears in my screen, and see that in the middle I can find a bunch of land design commands to edit the object I'm working on. In this case, I'm going to use the option pick boundary to select which is the boundary I want to use. This is the curve that remains in my drawing. Let me see. I guess the curves used to be here. There was a curve. Let me see. Where is the curve? Here. Okay, this is the curve I need. I can see it in the shade mode. I'm going to repeat, select the terrain, and then, of course, the boundary has to be a close polyline or whatever. In this case, I'm going to select this polyline. And now if I go back to the 3D model, we can see that now the model fits to my the terrain fits on my boundary contour. Okay. Another thing that I can do, if I need to create some path, for example, if I want to create like a slope area or a small hill, I can work directly. I'm going to go back to the wireframe and I'm going to the top view. I'm going to change my layer to the contour curves layer. And then I'm going to create a bunch of curves because I want to make a path, but I want to create like let's say a view height area, because we can imagine that in here we have just making an example, no? An industrial area, and we want to create a park, allowing the people to see a nasty buildings or whatever. Then I can create an area that I'm going to add, of course, material, and I can create some splines to create these curves. Of course, we can use a polyline too, and afterwards edit this polyline to create the splines. But I'm going to create the splines directly in this area. In this case, the splines are going to more or less follow this contour, and then I'm going to create this area in here. If I place 4 or 5 lines and I place a meter, there's going to be a 4 or 5 meters height of information too. If I want to constrain my area, I can create a polyline that is going to follow using the reference points, this point here, then I can use any other or of the AutoCAD commands to make this area that I want to close. If I want to make just the terrain, this area constraint. Then as you can see, we can create open or close splines. And then I'm going to apply the command again. I'm going to make this option inside terrain that is going to make a curves elevation. I'm going to keep the same increment, draw a line from this point to this point, apply to have this option in 3D. These curves you can see now are in 3D. Then I'm going to use these curves to create the terrain again. I'm going to terrain. I'm going to use this option here. You can find it in the pull-down menu as well. I'm going to select the size that I'm going, as I know that with one unit is nice and is not making me slow down. I'm going to keep this value here. I'm going to left the rest of the values with the same information. And then I'm going to select my curves with the cross. And then I'm going to fit this area. As you can see, always the param is creating the terrain with the size of the contour curves. But afterwards, I have the option to go to terrain and pick the boundaries that I want to constrain my terrain to. Then if we change point of view, we can see here that we have a couple of terrains. Then let's work with the terrains now. Let's see how we can change the terrains using the commands that we are able to make changes in the terrains too. You can see that all the commands that we have to change the terrains are inside the right mouse button when we select the object. We have the option pick boundary. We have been done twice. Of course, we can remove the boundary in terms that we can want to remove this contour. And then we can add a contour curve. Then, for example, if we draw a curve, I'm going to move, of course, you know that with AutoCAD, you can split your screen, have the top view, then we can have other side views or perspective views. But at the end, I want to create like a channel where, for example, my rainwater drives through this channel to an area, and I want to add a contour curve here. Then one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to create a contour curve to be more soft. I'm going to use this option too. Then my contour curve is going to cross my line here. Then what I'm going to make is I'm going to move this contour curve using the command move from the modify. I can use the command move, select any point with the ortho activated. I have the option to move up in Z coordinate, and then I'm going to move 3 feet, in my case 1 meter. I'm going to place this in a shade mode that you will see better. That then we have the option to select the object, then go to terrain, add a contour curve, then I select this contour curve here. And then as we can see, the terrain has been modified, creating this canal here, driving my rainwater from the hill, and of course from this side as well, to an area that I am interested because there is a water collector or whatever. Okay. Another option that we have inside the command is we have the option to create holes or to create some flat areas in any place. That to work with, I'm going to use the option rectangle to create a hole, and then I'm going to use the option spline to create a flat area. Top view, if I want to make it simple, I can use the option 2D, and I'm going to make a rectangle to make a hole. Then I'm going to make a rectangle in this area. Then I'm going to place the rectangle at the level that I want to use this rectangle to be work. I'm going to take the advantage that I'm the 2D view in wireframe to draw the other geometry too. And for example, I'm going to create a spline, in this case, a closed spline in this area here. I'm going to close this. Then I'm going to change and I'm going to place the objects in the place I need it. In the first case, I'm going to left the rectangle on the 0 level. But in this case, I'm going to move this 6 feet up. I'm going to use again the command move. Of course, you can use any option you believe is worth for you. I'm going to set up the ortho. I'm going to say 8 meters up. And then as we can see here, we have this object up and this remains on the flat area. Okay, I'm going to change to 3D to be more realistic, let's say. And then I'm going to apply. First of all, I'm going to select the terrain. I'm going to place a hole. Following option, we have the option add a hole. And then I'm going to select the rectangle. I hope I can select the rectangle. Otherwise, I'm going to change. First of all, I'm going to make in 2D view because the shade mode don't allow me to select the rectangle properly. Then I'm going to at a hole. I'm going to select this object to make a hole. We'll see later on, because I'm going to place the other option that I'm going to make inside terrain. I'm going to make a cut and fill. And as we saw, I create the spline. Some part of the spline is, let's say, up in the air, but the other one is fitted inside the hill. Then if I say cut and fill with this contour, first of all, I have the possibility to add the angle. Always follow the command prompt area, because the program is going to drive you through the options. And I'm going to place a 45 degrees for the slope areas. And then he is asking me for a close surface. And now I can go back to shade mode. And we can see here that we have the details placed in my terrain. One of the things that we can do as well, we can see that we are following the commands to create terrain, and we almost done, is the option add a path. This is an interesting one I'm going to show you right now. Of course, the option divide, it's good when we want to divide our geometry. For example, if we want to create this as a swimming pool, we want to divide this piece of terrain to change the material. This is the option to divide to create a terrain. Of course, there is another option that sometimes is going to be easy. If we want to have different kind of material on the top of this, let's say green here, or the swimming pool here, is as easy as make draw modeling, extruding the geometry that we use. Well, there is another thing that it's nice. I'm going to show you is the option to hide information that I have in my screen. In this case, I hide for a while temporary the terrain, and I have the option to create draw modeling. Then I can extrude, and I can extrude this just a little bit to create a 3D solid modeling, for example, just 0.05, and I'm going to do the same with this part here. I'm going to repeat the command extrude. I'm going to use the same. Then I will be able to apply material on this without I don't need to split or divide my terrain to apply another material. In fact, here we have the color is by layer, but I can say here is going to be green, and this one is going to be blue. Afterwards, I can apply a material, but first of all, I just want to see it more or less what it looks like these objects in here, just to show you. The path option is very nice because I'm going to show you two things in a row, in one shot. I'm going to place this in a top view, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a path that is going to continue this branch from the main path. There is a branch, and then I want to climb more or less on the middle of the hill, and then I want to connect with the other hill to arrive to this flat area, the green area I was talking about. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the path. Again, you can draw the path using any of the commands, polyline or whatever. In my case, I'm going to use the spline again. And then I'm going to place the spline, but I'm going to, as much as points, I'm going to start here. And then I'm going to switch off the ortho. As much as points as I select, it is going to driven these points to be placed on the terrain. And again, as much as points as I create, you can see here when I select the spline, we can see the grip points here. Then spline that remains on the ground. Let me see that the graphic card allows me to change the view. You can see that this is a line that remains on the ground, but I want to place this line on the terrain. And then I have the option to select the line. I just draw, right mouse button, adjust to terrain. And then the program is placing my curve on the terrain. And then one of the things I'm able is to change, going to switch on the ortho again, We can modify this geometry in the way we want. For example, I'm going to make like a bridge to avoid to go up and down, and here I'm going to move down this to make more soft. I'm crossing inside the hill, and for example, I'm going to make this a little bit down as well to avoid to go up and down. And then once we have placed the curve, each point of the curve in the height I want to use, I have the possibility to use this curve to create a path. And then I'm going to select the first terrain. Of course, I can merge the terrains, or I can do the terrain in one set. But inside the option terrain, we have the option add a path. And then I'm going to select this path here that is going to be like, let's say 9 or 10 feet wide. And then I'm going to make a 45 degrees angle as well, or I can make it higher. For example, I make 75. And I select the curve. And the brown, as you can see, is modifying my terrain to create this shape. And of course, I have to do the same in the other side. I'm going to repeat into the wireframe, top view, whatever you can move. In this case, I'm going to select the terrain, add path, 3 meters, or 10 feet, 75 degrees, curve. I'm going to change the view, and you can see the result in shade mode. We can see that here I've created a hole. Of course, the quality, if I change the size, for example, I place 1.2, depending on, you can see here on the bottom right side of my screen that is modeling. Then now the size for the tiles are going to be smaller, and it's creating, let's say, a more quality terrain. Of course, I can place it smaller. We don't really need it when I make the render options, because with the render options, we're going to apply a material. A material could have a displacement, or could be like in 3D, and we are not going really to see these tiles or this mesh quality here. And I don't have to be quite worried about that. But in any case, you can add more quality if you need it. Well, this is all about terrains. There is one thing more that I'm going to show you later on, but let's continue with our geometry. One of the things that we have, and I'm going to go back to the wireframe view, and on the top view, I'm going to work with this. I'm going to go to back to 2D. There's going to be, let's say, more light to handle the object. Let's move to the vegetation. That is one of the things that for you is going to be for sure more or quite interesting, because in any case, or in some cases, we can work in a project that we are not drawing, or we are not taking care of the terrain manipulation or editing or managing, and we are only taking care of where the plans are going to be placed. We are going to see what's going on with the plans insert and which options we have here. Okay, one of the things that I'm going to show you is once we have, or in any moment, because we can, of course, we can start to place vegetation or species in any moment. We don't need to finish everything about the terrain. We can go to be a farm forward and backward in any moment. But in this case, you can see here in the ribbon menu that we have all the vegetation capabilities in here. I'm going to start showing you the plant database. The plant database is the place where we manage our species database. And as you know, told you that these kind of windows are technically called dialog boxes or dialog boxes. We can start on the upper left, because normally we move from left to right and from upper part to bottom part. Driven all the settings to find out the plan or the species I want to use. I can create my own personal filters. In fact, the program has all the plans database. Of course, there are, well, Helen told, but I guess that there are more than 2,000 plans, and as she told, they are being added constantly. You can create a group, a special group that it's called favorites. Just clicking the heart in the first column, you create this bunch of your favorite species, and then if you have in as much as you need from Louisiana, and you can use each on the heart on, you will see your special filter. Some of them are including a rendering option, a rendering plan that the program has an option to create the plan with the morphology. And finally, on the last release, had been added the options to work with vertical garden using the option, the rendering option as well. And then there are a bunch of plans that are used to our vertical garden too. Another things that we can do is we can use a filter just typing some letters. The program is going to look any letter combination that it's fine in well, the program can find in all the database, BIM favorites, or in all the plans. For example, you can see that not first of all I was filtering the favorites ones. Of course, you can remove the filters just clicking this option, because we have as well options to make a filter by plant type, leaf type, shape, flowering. I'm not showing you for a long period of time the pull-down menu, but for example, we can look for water needs, because well, some characteristics like fragrancy or the soil type, then we can create like a filter, because everything, all the information is set up in each species inside the properties. And then one of the things that when we select a plan, we can see here an image that could be picked up from Google. We can see which is the 2D drawing that is being used. And we have like 4 different kind of representation for the 2D or 3D simple or detail, plus the realistic, that is the rendering option. All the representations could be customized by the user using the option properties, because inside properties, we have the access to the database for the selected object. As you can see, we have like a checkbox to avoid and wish, let's say, errors, mistakes, or on which editing. We have to set up this option here. We can change what kind of picture we want to use. We can change the name, the common name, or the scientific name. We can add some initials, that the initials are very useful for the list of the plants. And then we have information for the species in different tabs up here. All this information could be done by the customer. In the morphology, for example, we have a very nice area where we can place comments. And this is the issue I was talking to you previously, to say here, you can add your own comments. You can explain when the plan has to be determined, has to be cut or trim or whatever. How many watering has to be done in every year season, and so on. This is a value that we can add together with my project to my customer. And then we can see here that we have a special sheet with all the information. In this case, the comments are empty, but here you have all the information. And then this file or this print file, you can print, of course, this information, and you can deliver to the customer in a pen drive, or you can deliver, of course, on a paper book or project book or whatever. Characteristics. This is where we set up information to be filtered later on. And the two following tabs allow me to select which is the 2D drawing file I'm using, the block that I'm using. And then if I want to change, I have the option to go to the plans crowns folder and select from this folder all the crowns that I can find here. These are the crowns provided by the BIM, but of course you can create your own crown. It's a DWG file from AutoCAD. And I can change the block for the 2D drawing, the block for the 3D shape, the block for the 3D detail, and the rendering block. And directly from here, if I want to edit or I want to create my own, because of course I can create a new species or copy, creating a new, let's say, a new shape or a new representation from an existing one. It's as easy as say copy species and go ahead making changes. For example, if I want to change the representation for this plan when I make a rendering, I can go to the plan editor. And then the plan editor is going to open another window where I can select which kind of standard for the grow, proportion, appearance, density, branching, and so on. And it's quite easy as modify the slicer. Here, you can see I can move the branches, I can bend them, I can make it more horizontal. I can decide where is going to be the first branch, right from the base or a little bit up. I can add more density, for example. Can add more leaves. And I have the option to change, which is the file for the trunk and branch representation, which is going to be the proportion for the branch, the spread for the branch, and I can select which is going to be the foliage, the leaf, and in case that this species has flowers or fruits, because, well, you cannot measure have one or another, depending on the season, you can add the image to the object that you need. Of course, here it's by default flower, but of course you can change the, in this case, it's a PNG file because the white area is going to be transparent to create the flower contour perfectly. Then once I finish, I can save this file or I can save as to create a new one. And depending on which one I want to use, I can create, let's say, a younger plant coming from the garden center, or after a few years or some years of working in the garden. And I'm going to save. This is the database that the program has and how it works. You can use it as any moment, but when you want to place a species, you can select different kind of or different ways to place a plan. First one I'm going to use is this option here, plan. I can select a plan, and then I have an insertion dialog box where I can select the season, and this is important because I can have up to 7 different shapes. Of course, there are only 4 seasons, but in here you can see that there are options. For example, spring has 3 levels, early spring and late spring. Or for example, summer has 2. Well, I can ignore the global and get in deep. I can select information about the caliber and the presentation. And these are values that the program has included. But if I have, for example, I'm working with a garden designer, I know that they have a reference for my plan or my species that is called FR123. I can use this caliber as the reference to buy this, because I'm going to make a bill of materials list, and then I can make an Excel, and I can send all the references list in the caliber column, for example, and I can select which is going to be the presentation. For example, I can say that it's going to be on a root ball. And then I can ask to my provider or my supplier the budget for these kinds of plans based on their references. And they can provide me the prices, and then I can provide to my customer. At the end, of course, I have to browse and select which is going to be the plan I'm going to place in the garden. There is a bunch of plans here. For example, I'm going to use this cupressus. I select it. Then I have the option to select which is going to be the age. In fact, the age is not really how many years old is going to be the plan. Let's say this is going to be a baby plan up to a mature plan. Because this, let's say in a very good conditions, this plan can reach 10, in this case, 10 meters is going to be like 30 feet height when it's mature. But of course, it's going to not continue growing, but continue living as a person, let's say. And then this is an information that the program is going to get from the database as well. And for example, I'm going to place more or less 18 feet height. Then, in this case, I don't care about the rotation, but as you can imagine, we're placing different kind of trees. If I, with the random rotation, the advantage is if I select the place that I'm going to place my cupressus in here, and for example, I'm going to place in this corner as well, and I'm going to place in this corner and this corner here. One of the advantages is the 3D object is not going to be placed in the same direction. And of course, now all the trees have the same height. If we change the point of view, and we change, of course, the view to a 3D, we can see now that first of all, the tree has the 2D drawing. Then when I change to the 3D, now I have the 3D option. All of them has the same size. But now, and this is one of the advantages, I have the control panel. I'm going to anchor my control panel here. We can see that I have information about the number of plans I have selected. I have information about the object, and then I have the option with the browse to change the plan itself. But I have the option to change some information. And for example, here I can rotate. You can see that they are changing the position. Then it's going to make like a more realistic making different kind of sizes inside my garden are the same species, but I change some information. In this case, I'm going to make this one bigger. Okay, it's going to make like more realistic. Okay, I'm going to place the objects in 2D, and afterwards I'm going to move to 3D when I have a bunch of them. Another option we have is we can insert species in a row. We can create a plan row. The advantage is I'm using the same interface, only we have another tab here that is a tab for the row information. And then, of course, I have to select my plan directly from the database. Of course, I can have a template where I have not only my favorites inside the database, I can have a group of favorites inside my template. And in this way, I don't need to go to the database. That, for example, I'm going to select, for example, this citrus that I'm going to insert. I place just CIT to select the citrus. And then I'm going to select this citrus that is going to be 3, 9 or 10 feet height. Well, the rest is going to be repeated in each option. I'm not going to repeat which are the options. I'm going to target to the new tab that appears that allow me to insert a number of units in a row, or I can select which is going to be a separation. And then we take advantage to see which is going to be the crown diameter. For example, I can say I want to place a separation of 2.5 units in between. And afterwards, I can select a path if I have already created it, or I can draw a polyline, spline, circle, arc, or rectangle, as we can see here in the command prompt area options. Then, for example, you want to select that is going to be from this point to this point. And when I select OK, the program is going to place the information I have created. Then the advantage is this is an object that is grouped together. It's a row. I have the information to change the plan, to change the row, but is an AutoCAD object as well. Then I have the option to copy this information, this geometry that I have here, and I can select which is the place I want to place these objects again. I can see here that I have, let's say, a long area that I don't really need. I'm able to reduce the amount of the length for the area I want to cover, but I can change information as well. For example, in the plan, I can change the height. I'm going to make it the height. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. And in the road area, I'm going to change the value for the separation to make these objects looks like this way. Then I have to cover a couple of part insertion, and I'm going to move forward to other options too. I'm going to do one thing that it's interesting is I'm going to save my project. I'm going to see here V2, and it's saved. Well, the following one I'm going to show you is the option to create a SRAP area. The advantage for this option, I'm going to look for another type, and for example, I'm going to came here down here for this Leachnus. I'm going to select this one. When I have to cover an area, and I don't really need to see in the 2D all the information about the species, I'm going to reduce the size. I'm going to place more or less 3 feet. With this group area, we don't really need to take care. I'm going to use light green to be more visible in my screen. One of the things I can do is instead to draw all the plans that I need, I can say I need how much plans per square meter or feet meter or whatever. I'm going to say I'm going to place 4 units, for example, for every square meter or any area I'm working on. And then the representation is going to be like a solid or any other kind of patterns with an irregular edge. I know that I have the information in this area, but I don't really need to place all the small plans in there. Another option that we have is the option to place a forest. Then I'm going to select another geometry, and then I'm going to use, let me see, because I'm going to use the option, the fly, I'm going to use this one, and then I'm going to use this rose pattern here. And then I'm going to say that it's going to be almost 3 feet, more or less. Then inside the forest, I have the possibility to create an array. And the arrays could be a square, rectangular, or could be a triangle. And I'm going to say it's going to be like 3 feet length distance. Okay, I'm going to define the area here, around here. And you can see that it's like 3 feet distance in between, creating these small triangles for this area. And finally, we have the option to create a forest, but in this case, I'm going to use another type. I'm going to take this wrap out. I'm going to use a pine tree, for example, the Pinus nigra. And to say it's going to be 9 feet or so. And then in the forest one, I'm going to use the units. With the units option, I'm going to provide how much, what is the limit that I want to add to an area, and then which is the minimum distance in between each one. Then in this case, more or less, the diameter is like 5 meters. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, like 4. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the area using the polyline, and I'm going to place my limit area around here. For example, I'm going to make my forest to be something like this around the this area in here. And then the perm is adding the amount of trees. As you can see, there are no 100. Of course, I have the option to reduce the distance. If I place 2, it's going to be more crowd. If I place 3, it's going to be less crowd, but it's going to follow all this area. Of course, I can place in other areas as well. But the advantage in this case is if we go to the 3D and then we place the option for see it in 3D, we will see that everything is on the flat area and level 0. But then we have the option in the same way we apply a terrain adjust for the spline, we can apply the forest adjust for the, okay, now it's converting everything in 3D. Of course, now in 3D, we have all the wrap that we placed here has to be drawn in quite detail, more or less 3 plans every square meter. At the end, it finished well. There is a high quality geometry. It worked. I'm going to change my point of view. Well, we can see that there is a bunch of geometry in here. Let me see how many. 4. I'm going to place 2. It's going to reduce half of them. Well, probably 3 will be the good one because now it's a little poor. Well, 3, I guess, is good enough. And then what I want to show you is the option that we have created this forest here, that it's not following the terrain. If I change to the okay, here. Then when we place, we can select the forest, and then we have the option to select the right mouse button and then it's going to set up every tree on the top of the terrain automatically. There's an option that we have the possibility to create it automatically, or we can place it afterwards manually executing the command now manually each tree on the top of the terrain. What I want to show you, it's I'm going to create a new one just to show you. This is quite nice from my view. Here you can select if you want to use the template in feet or in meters. Is the option that allow us to obtain the information for the terrain directly here in terrain modeling, importing the elevation data. And then the program is connecting to an area. As you can see here, there is a push pin. Here is where I'm located. That's the reason why the program set up me here. Well, there is a part here, but it's quite flat. I'm going to move to another area in here that I have the possibility to set up a nicer geometry in here. Then we have here a small park with a terrain. Let me see, because I'm going to look for the parkway that it's set up in here. Then I'm going to place this area, and then I have the possibility to introduce which is the geometry I want to create, and I'm going to create a terrain, and I'm going to use the distance in meters. In the beginning, I'm going to use the option 1 with accuracy. I'm going to put it a little bit higher, and then when I say import, I have my terrain in here, and if I change the view, you can see that we have the terrain set up in here. And of course, we can proceed. This is a terrain, as you can imagine. Here we have the quality and so on, but we can proceed with all the jobs that we have done in the other geometry here. Another thing that I want to show you is the option that allows me in AutoCAD. I want to show you a file. This one is closer to you. It's in Seattle. I don't know if someone of you have been in Seattle, or even if some of you are located in Seattle. This is the Gasworks Park that it's in the inner part of Seattle area, behind the downtown. Well, here we have what they call the waterfront. I don't know if you are familiar with this area, but for sure, you know that more or less the Space Needle is in this area here, more or less. And then there is let's say a lake behind the downtown. The downtown is located in this area. And then there is a park in here. And then we have the possibility to capture this information directly from the map. And then we have the option here in geolocalization inside AutoCAD. And then we can start to place our species in here. We have lands. I'm going to use the option insertion single plan. I'm going to use the ABS Alba, for example, and I'm going to select this size here. And then I can place, if I want to forest this area manually, and you can see that more or less we are creating directly from the shape, the 3D geometry. And then the last thing I want to show you is the part of rendering. And then I'm going to the park I have been working on. Well, there is a bunch of possibilities. If you want to use the option for directly from AutoCAD, you can set up where is going to be the sun. Okay, save. Perfect. I'm going to close this.
Take a look at the listing options, the plant list and other schedules.
Yeah. I'm going to open, and then I'm going to open the same file. I'm going to make the list, the bill of materials. Yeah, the bill of materials is interesting. Works the same way as we proceed with the list for the Sonify. but it's interesting to see it. Okay, I have this version 2 with all the settings in. Now, of course, I'm going to keep the 3D option open. Of course, this is, well, also I jammed the irrigation, but well, you can place some irrigations geometry in here. I'm going just to set up the top view, but I'm going to move to the documentation list, plan list, and then I'm going to insert the plan list. I can place from the bottom left corner. The advantage is that this list is going to grow as soon as I insert more plans. I mean, I don't need to delete it and insert again. If I place more plans, it's going to grow. This list could be edited as the rest of the objects from lands from the control panel, where I can select name, color, kind of table borders. For example, I can make inside a square or a box, place horizontal lines, vertical lines, and I can change, for example, which is the amount of information I want to have. If I want to add the option density, for example, I can add the density column as well. And then I can choose this different kind of geometry in here. And also the advantage that I can export this listing. I can export and create with the export option the HTML or XLS file format. And at the end, we can create, I'm going to, let me see, go to the default. I'm going to change the layer to set up the 0 layer. I'm going to switch off this. And then one of the things that I can do from the lens design is set up a view. From lens design, we have the option to set a viewpoint. And then this is very nice for me as well, because I can place, let's see, I can talk to my customer and say, where you want to be in your garden. For example, here in the beginning of the path, looking at the forest, for example, here. And then the person is going to place there. And then we have the option with the tab, if there is this is an extension. I told you that you can use the AutoCAD rendering, but you can use the NXT rendering option as well. And then we can place a ground here that we can just drop materials in it, or we can place a rendering. I'm going to switch on a higher quality. Well, from here we decide the quality for my rendering, and then when I place render AutoCAD view, it's going to render this view. Of course, I haven't much materials applied to my objects, but at least we can see now it's loading the model, and afterwards he's going to render the model. Well, as I always say, make a render is like to see the grass grow. You never be there. You have been done the work. You have been moving the ground. You have adding the sheets. You place watering, and then you leave the nature go ahead with the job. For the renders is the same. You press the render button and let the program work. Well, here we can see we have the terrain and we have the forest. Let me see, because it was really small. Now it's bigger. The rendering is what we call a noising rendering. Is adding more quality in each pass. Now it's in pass 2. As soon as he creates more passes, he's going to add more quality to all the objects in here. I'm going to move a little bit backwards so I can control, and a little bit up to see more objects. And then I have the possibility to see the walkthrough view. The advantage for the walkthrough view is that I can place a background. Then I can see if I have some images here for skies and clouds. And I can place something like this behind me. I can move a little bit in, let me see how it goes. Yeah, nice. You can make a Photoshop editing. If you want to place your garden inside a photo, but well, here you can set up an image at the ground as a background for the place you want to be it in.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Gabby.
I don't know if we can let the rendering go ahead. I have applied some material in here. Let me add a couple of them because I have some stuff that I want to add in this object. Aside to layer terrain, and this is going to be the grass to this object. And then we can let the render go. I'm going to place this one. And if there are questions or whatever, this is all image.
There was a question. Yeah, there was a question about which kind of list or schedules we can get from landsdesign. So apart from plant list, can you please show us?
There's going to be the first one is going to be sonify list. Then you can get plant list, watering device list, and the length of the pipes for the watering pipes. We have to keep in mind that we are not going to create a real 3D piping system in our garden. We're going to create like a layout system. Then there's not going to be the accurate amount of pipe that we need, but we can add information that, for example, the diameter is going to be half of an inch, is going to be 1 inch or whatever. Even we can apply which is going to be the amount of, if we have some pressure, normally the pressure is going to be in PSI or atmospheres or whatever. You can see here that now we have like some material for the object is going to be like soil for the ground. I like to add some grass in the flat plane, but I didn't succeed. But well, this is working on the quality, and it's going making some other passes. These are the list that you can create in the. Well, I forgot one. It's about the block library objects. If you place, for example, the branch or the street lights, he's going to account as well.
And the terrain list, the list of earth moving operation, all cotton fields and all the operation. So it's almost the time, Xavi.
For me,
I don't know if you have any other point.
No more questions.
Which is remained.
No.
So I'm going to share my screen again.
Okay. It's working on because a lot of resources. You can go ahead.
Thank you.
Well, you can show some existing renderings that, of course, it takes a while to create a good rendering, but you can show them. Thank you very much. Going ahead.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Well,
thank you very much.
Let's take a look at our project. If you can see my screen, here we have project gallery receiving from different users. So here you can see how is the final results, applying different renders, of course. Also here in download page, you can see that we have a 90 days free trial in AutoCAD and in Rhino version. You are more than welcome to try it out by yourself. And just feel free to contact us for any other issue or any question. landsdesign@asuni.com. Have a nice day and thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.